Now, the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union just emerged from its Congress with a newly elected leadership. Nehawu is accusing Finance Minister Govan of undermining public wage talks and collective bargaining. Now, eNCA reporter Govan Whittles has more on the story. Govan, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know you were there a bit earlier and spoke to Nehawu's leadership. What exactly is at the center of this bad blood between Nehawu currently with Govan and the wage talks, given that we all know that it was our fiscus that informed those conversations and why there was no increase?
Yeah, well, Nehawu has been in a standoff with the ANC and the Department of Public Service and Administration since 2019, since the government reneged on the implementation of that third year of the agreement for 6%, went to the Labour Appeals Court. They got a judgment from the Labour Appeals Court that said that the Treasury needed to explicitly give permission for the increase to be granted, and all the unions in Cosatu had was that cabinet memorandum. They argued that the Treasury is part of cabinet, so that would be Treasury approval, and that's still in the Constitutional Court. So as things stand, the public sector workers haven't been paid the third year of the increase from 2018, and they're still waiting for a 1.5% increase for the 2020 financial year, 2021 financial year. And now Govan has said that public sector workers won't be getting an increase in 2022. So this should be viewed in context of Nehawu being the biggest union within Cosatu, with 279,000 members. Coming in second place would be the National Union of Mine Workers, NUM, at about 250, and thereafter SATU. The biggest union in the country is NUMSA, with over 300,000 members. And now Nehawu has emerged from a Congress having not only analyzed the ANC's electoral performance, but analyzed its relationship with the ANC, and it remains in the standoff position. In fact, they've been clear with it, saying that the ANC is losing its relevance, and they believe that the results that the ANC scored in the local government elections were not surprising at all. They had warned the governing party that this was going to happen. This is also kind of a response to people saying the reason the ANC did so badly in Gauteng was because the workers who are part of the industrial base in Ekurhuleni, as well as in Nelson Mandela Bay, didn't pitch up to vote for the governing party.
They're deeply aggrieved, I'm sure.
And Nehawu says, could you possibly blame them after the way that the workers have been treated by the ANC? And Nehawu says it didn't put together a program or a budget to campaign for the ANC because it couldn't do so because its members weren't paid the increase. So it's a standoff. There is significant bad blood, and Nehawu wants to form a popular left front with the SACP to consolidate workers' power. Obviously, that would lean towards the 2024 elections, but they haven't kicked the ANC out.
But we know
yet.
with the SACP, they've tested the electoral might before, and it didn't go so well, but perhaps they would. But closer to home, you've got a Nehawu that's now looking an alliance partner, the ANC, and how it's done and how it's lost its relevance. But closer to home is the Labour Federation that they belong to. They are affiliates of Cosatu. Do they believe Cosatu remains the vehicle to actually sit at the negotiating table on their behalf as workers?
Yeah, they absolutely do. And Nehawu's not going to dump Cosatu. That's pertinently clear because of the relations Cosatu has with SAFTU and the bad blood between Nehawu and SAFTU as well. It should be pointed out that Cosatu's current deputy president is Mike Shingange. He's just been elected unopposed as president of Nehawu at this weekend's conference. That'll do very well for Nehawu in terms of consolidating its position within Cosatu and its ability to stand with workers like from the National Union of Mine Workers and SATU to try and force a change in Cosatu's posture. Cosatu endorsed the ANC for this past elections, but they made it clear that their endorsement was only a confirmation of an earlier Cosatu Congress decision to support the ANC. And leading up to that decision, even at the Central Committee, there's been a lot of debate around whether Cosatu should not endorse another party outside of the alliance. But because they're embedded within the alliance governance structure, which is currently ruling in South Africa.
But many have been talking that there needs to be some sort of reconfiguration there, because SACP and Cosatu have very little say. And we've heard this so many times, Govan, that they're always the ones on the sidelines saying, we don't want these neoliberal policies. But somehow they've been offered a seat at the table, but nothing changes in policy. So again, it begs the question, when Nehawu says they're still supporting Cosatu, a Cosatu that seems to have no influence at the table when the ANC formulates policy, does it make sense? Or the left organization will be Nehawu walking out with the SACP and leaving Cosatu to start its own Labour Federation?
It's pretty clear at the moment that Nehawu believes that it can twist Cosatu towards embracing a more confrontational position with the ANC and doesn't see itself as walking away from the federation, particularly as Cosatu remains the largest worker federation in the country, rivaled only by SAFTU, and the departure of Nehawu would signal, for all intents and purposes, a move towards the collapse of Cosatu as holding its position as the dominant worker force in the country. And all indications are they're likely to try and radicalize the SACP and Cosatu and have a bigger voice within the tripartite alliance. But what we've seen is, despite the numerous calls for action from the ANC by Cosatu, the Cosatu leaders embedded in the ANC, as well as the SACP leaders embedded in cabinet, have not been able to bring about a change that Cosatu unions have been happy with. I spoke to Mike Shingange about the state of their relationship with the ANC and the government as well. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
Okay, it seems we do not have that bite just yet. But perhaps to touch on Enoch Godongwana. I mean, in comes Enoch, and he seems to have the same posture as that of his predecessor. He's more of a centrist, leaning towards the right. In terms of policy, we don't expect much of a change. Are they looking to perhaps, I don't know, find some way to work with Enoch, because they have no choice at this point? And he's between a rock and a hard place, given our economy and our debt that continues to surge.
Cosatu has always opposed the austerity budget, or what the Treasury calls the reprioritization budget, which cuts in spending. And last time it cut on the spending for public sector wages, and Cosatu says it also cut on the spending, the budget for the CCMA. As you recall, during the mass dismissals during the COVID period, the CCMA was overwhelmed, and Cosatu saying that blame, particularly Nehawu, saying that blame needs to be put at the foot of the National Treasury. They've been in the standoff with the National Treasury since 2018, and it doesn't appear as if Nehawu believes the ANC will abandon the austerity budget in the medium-term budget policy statement tomorrow. Instead, they expect Enoch Godongwana and the administration run by Cyril Ramaphosa, which they're very disappointed in, to continue with the austerity budget and believe that this is the reason why we are in the worst recession in 100 years and why unemployment is at 45%, at least according to Nehawu. So it doesn't look like they anticipate a change from the ANC, not under this administration. In fact, they've used an adage which currently represents the relationship, and said in 2017 they gave Cyril Ramaphosa, then the deputy president of the ANC, running for president of the ANC, a Nehawu jacket, a leather jacket, which is quite expensive. And this year at the conference, they invited the president to come and address the opening of the conference. He couldn't do it because he went to Swaziland.
Yes.
Now Nehawu says they want that jacket back. And they want to sell that jacket to pay some of their workers' funds.
No, these are very difficult times, eh? Within the alliance, it's very difficult. But it will be interesting to see what comes out of that policy statement.